I just did a review for Skyway Robbery. By the time this video goes up, that video will be up as well.
Skyway Robbery.
It's an obscure game. Game Salute. You know Game Salute.
Yeah, Starling Games. Yeah.
Yeah, which is now split off into 4 different brands. Starling picked up all the games that Game Salute normally has. They made a Kickstarter game that came out about 2 years ago called Skyway Robbery, which is like Ocean's 11 but in steampunk. Right, and players hire gangs, compete with other players to steal the loot. It has got a giant footprint. It has a board the size of Legends of Andor. So, like Matt, you know Legends of Andor. So a game board that big for this Skyway Robbery. It's got amazing artwork. You can't even find it on their website. Game Salute has buried that game to such an extent.
Yeah.
They made a sequel which didn't pass Kickstarter, didn't succeed. They made no. They didn't even try to relaunch it or try to do it again. So that was it. They one shot to try to boot up a sequel on Kickstarter, failed, and then the game got buried. I picked it up on a last chance sale from 401, and it weighs 5 pounds, 5.5 pounds, because the boards are like that thick, and there's like so there's just a brick of boards, which is this location you throw down. It is a fun game. But I was like, man, I have a lot of steampunk games. But a lot of steampunk games, I think there's tons of steampunk games. I think the genre is a poison pill.
I'm done with steampunk, really. I just can't take any more of it.
It's not that. It's that, but it just seems like, it seems like the genre, everybody makes steampunk games.
Yeah.
I think steampunk games are a poison pill. I think your game is doomed to fail. Because I have 5 steampunk games. I think one of them is the only game that's Steampunk Rally, which we mentioned. Steampunk Rally, fun game, but all the other Steam games I have, every single one of them has been a game that nobody has got no airfare. Yeah. Sky Traders, Planet Steam, Steam Park, games that aren't very popular anymore.
Leviathans.
Yeah, there you go. There's another one. Nothing against the genre. I'm sure there are we'll think of a steampunk game that's popular. But all the way, I have 5 steampunk games.
What's that other steampunk game you were going to buy off me? It was The World of Smog on Her Majesty's Service. Yeah, that was a steampunk one. It was a Simon game.
Didn't do so well. I don't know. I think steampunk may be a poison pill.
Yeah.
Which is,
I think people are just done with it. Kind of like Zombie. But Zombie still seems to have a little bit of life in it.
Zombie still has weight.
Yeah.
It still has weight.
But steampunk is...
I don't know, which is weird too because...
But when you think about it too, when you see people dressed up in conventions as zombies and stuff, you're just like, alright. When you see people dressed up in steampunk and stuff, you're like, oh...
I don't... It depends. There's 2 ways about that. If it's a really good steampunk costume, I'm like, hey, good steampunk costume. If it's a pre-bought one, because there was one year a girl was walking around in a steampunk costume, and I'm like, my fiance has the exact same costume at home. Bought that off of Amazon because it's such a mass market. You can just buy a steampunk costume, so it loses a bit of its appeal. Yeah. I think it's. I think steampunk for steampunk's sake isn't going to do very well. But yeah, Skyway Robbery Steampunk didn't do very well. Sky Traders, which is another game that's never been touched on Dice Tower. I did a review for Planet Steam because no one touched that on Dice Tower. Also a steampunk game. Like these, see, I'm sure I'll look around and I'll find a steampunk game that's popular that they're still making games for. I cannot for the life of me think of one.
No, I can't either.
He really wants attention. But yeah, that's what I think. I think that it's unfortunate that which means I'm worried about Steampunk Rally.
Scythe.
I'm not calling that steampunk.
It's steampunk.
It's not.
Yeah,
it is not.
Is.
I would not call it steampunk because that gets into that stupid conversation. This is a stupid conversation. This is not a stupid conversation. I literally cut this out out of my Skyway Robbery video because I knew I was going to get shit on for it. Because I went on a rant for like 3 minutes about the whole punk moniker. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Because came out Cyberpunk, right? which is a short story some guy wrote. And then the whole genre got retconned into cyberpunk. Okay, fine. I'll take it. It was a cool name. So all the stuff that was written before it, that's now cyberpunk. But it was a relatively young genre, so it was permitted. Then K.W. Jeter, who was an asshat who wrote some really bad cyberpunk novels, said, and he thought, I'll do steampunk. So he coined the term steampunk as a play on cyberpunk. Because as a cyberpunk writer, he was worthless. So, but that, and then a few people wrote in that genre, and they decided to, oh yeah, we'll adopt that K.W. Jeter's term, and it's steampunk. But then what pissed me off is that when everyone retroactively took all the Victorian speculative fiction from the 1900s and said, that's steampunk now. I'm like, no, it's not. It's Victorian speculative science fiction. They weren't writing steampunk in the 19th century. That was just science fiction. Right? But they did that. They took all the H.G. Wells stuff and said, oh, now it's called steampunk. And there's things that are steampunk. But then people said, no, steampunk is Victorian, 18th century, 19th century. That's steampunk. Everything else is not steampunk. But they go, ooh, weird. And then they said, Wild Wild West is steampunk. And they're like, oh, no, it's not. And then but instead of just saying, no, steampunk is Victorian, is future, is retro sci-fi Victorian age. Okay, we're using steam power. And that became defined. But instead of leaving it alone, they just made up new punks. And that really drew my ire because they created sandal punk, stitch punk, biopunk. What was it? Atomic punk, diesel punk. There's a rococo punk. Right? Biopunk, biopunk is something like, a biopunk example is Bioshock. Bioshock is biopunk. Right? Sandalpunk is any futuristic stuff in the old ancient Greece. That's going to be called a sandalpunk now. Right? And there's clockpunk, which is not steampunk, because clockpunk is a generic steampunk. So
let me guess, Clockwork Orange.
No, clockpunk is the steampunk that's not Victorian. Right? So like Hugo and other things are, and not only that, because Old West steampunk wasn't considered steampunk because it wasn't Victorian, it got its own name. I can't remember the name for it now. But even though it really was called the Weird West genre, they said, no, it's a punk genre now. Like, fuck you. It is not a punk genre, it's just Weird West. And they did the exact same thing with Atomic Punk. Atomic Punk is called Art Deco. It's an Art Deco science fiction. I love that. I love that genre. I love the visual appeal. Sky Captain, The World of Tomorrow, people call steampunk. It's not steampunk. I don't see any steam in it. It's Art Deco. But now, they said, no, it's not steampunk. It's atomic punk. So now, Sky Captain, World of Tomorrow is atomic punk. Do you remember the game? Oh, God.
Well, Alien Frontiers.
Alien Frontiers.
It's atomic punk. It's got that old.
Yes, it does have that retro. Yeah, a lot of the sci-fi.
So does Red Planet.
Mission Red Planet is most certainly atomic punk, but people call it steampunk, and they're wrong. The other one that annoys me. So it's Art Deco, but you needed one because every time period. So 50s was atomic punk, 19th century was steampunk. You needed something for in between. That became diesel punk. So diesel punk is your World War I, World War II future. So diesel punk became Wolfenstein, Captain America, Winter Soldier,
Shadows of Normandy.
That's all become diesel punk. What's that one video game where you're betrayed and you become an assassin?
Dishonored.
Dishonored.
Yeah.
Dishonored is big time diesel punk. And they even call it diesel punk. I really am annoyed at the omni-punk. You couldn't just say, look, Art Deco, Weird West. It had to be a punk.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that annoyed me. So yeah, so someone says, oh yeah, it's steampunk. No, Scythe is diesel punk. Because it's old. Now, I'm happy to say, no, they do. People do call Scythe diesel punk in a lot of sources. I never do. I call it retro sci-fi.
Yeah.
I have no problem with retro sci-fi, but I love retro sci-fi. Did you ever watch Mutant Chronicles? It's one of those films where it's entirely shot in green screen, right? And it's based on an old role-playing game. Has a ridiculous cast. I mean, a ridiculous cast. I mean, you look at the cast and you're like, why have I? It's got, John Malkovich, Thomas Jane, Ron Perlman. Oh yeah, it's got a crazy good cast, and it's based on this heavy diesel punk setting that's like World War II. Then an alien machine opens up on the ground, and all these people get turned into like mutant zombies, and go out, and it's this ultra religious art, retro out sci-fi, and people are going, and these soldiers, old like World War style soldiers, are going to war, but it's actually set in the distant future. It was your role playing game when you wanted to play 40K, but you didn't want to play with miniatures. Because it had that retro, but those 500 years in the future, all these planets are at the war, but they're all corporations, all diesel kind of power. Like the airship that they fly to the alien machine it looks like just a chunk of steel. It literally has a big top and it's blowing out smoke, and it has no wings, and it's chugging through the sky. It costs, I think, $2.5-3 million, right? But it's one of those ones with complete digital sets. I own it. I do not know if I want to see it again, because when I watched it, it was so goofy, but so much freaking fun to watch. And I know that if I watch it again, it's going to be like Sky Captain. It's going to have aged really badly, because I love Sky Captain, but I'm so afraid to watch it, because I'm afraid it's going to age badly.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my rant on steampunk and cyberpunk and so forth. This is the rant I cut out of Skyway, because I know people were going to nail me on it.
Yeah,
I literally was so angry. What?
You're probably going to have to cut it out again.
No, I'll cut this as a separate section. The steampunk rant. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, yeah. I love art deco. I love that 50s retro. I avoid calling it atomic punk, but there's a part of me just like, well, what is it? It's atomic punk. But the part that pisses me off is that people call my setting steampunk. And I'm like, it's not Victorian. There's no steam power. But you have like people with like mixed match technology. I went, that's not steampunk. But you have like elves on trains. Like, that's not steampunk. But you have dirigibles. That's not isolated to steampunk. But you have steam engines. Just because I have a steam-powered airship doesn't mean my setting is steampunk. Well, it has a steam-powered airship, but it's not steampunk. But the same people say the same thing. It's like, oh, it's cyberpunk because you have like futuristic and elves. It's like Shadowrun. Like, it's not Shadowrun. But what genre is it? Do I have to? Is it mandatory? Am I required to say no? You must pick a punk. That's your requirement. You must pick a punk to fit your game into, because that's the requirement of being a writer. You must pick a genre, because I can't mine just be science fiction fantasy. Like, no, that's too vague. You must pick a punk.
Yep.
And I'm not being flippant. I think there's people out there that specifically the need to categorize and catalog your game or your product or your book or your setting.
Yep.
Oh, it's cyberpunk. Is it now?
Yeah.
Because cyberpunk for me is Blade Runner. Blade Runner is cyberpunk. Blade Runner 2049. RoboCop. Right?
Yeah.
And everyone says, oh yeah, Battle Angel coming out. It's cyberpunk. I go, is it?
Yeah.
I guess it is. Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, cyberpunk. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.